on to something a little bit more romantic.
Or fun.
Fun.
Possibly.
You can still have a romantic candlelight dinner with your sweetie, but during which course do you talk about money? Well, grab your loved one and your checkbook. We'll tell you why and how important it is next.
You know, most people base their relationships, you would think, on things like emotion or spirituality, physical compatibility, but our next guest says what they should really be talking about is something different. Manisha Thakor is the author, the co-author of On My Own 2 Feet, and she says what we really need to be concentrating on is financial compatibility. Is this really true? I mean, we hear it all the time that couples don't talk enough about money, huh?
It is. You know, you find your Mr. McDreamy, and what do your girlfriends say? They ask you how you pair up on all these different elements, but never on the financial component. Yet, what is the #1 thing that couples fight about? It's money.
So at what point in a dating relationship, when you're going out with somebody, do you start bringing up money, like the second date? Do you ask to see their checkbook? I mean, how do you even broach the subject?
Well, my co-author Sharon Kadar and I think the best way to do it is when you think that you found the one, so you think you're maybe getting ready to move in together, potentially get married. Great way to do it is to say you heard about it on Fox Business Network. It's an awkward conversation, but if you're willing to take your clothes off with someone in one way, you should be willing to take your clothes off with them financially.
That's one way of putting it, I guess, financially naked. The idea of doing that and bringing it up, in all seriousness, without saying, you know, you saw it on TV or what have you, are there certain... You know, is there a way to do it with talking about how much debt you have, or are there certain advice you can give to people on that?
Absolutely. I mean, what you really want to do is put out there as a couple what you own, what you owe, what your credit scores are. What you're trying to understand is the good, bad, and the ugly, so you can work on the situation together. The important thing is communication. You don't want any hidden financial potholes out there.
But what about the habits? What about shopping habits? How do you gauge whether your potential spouse is a shopaholic who is hiding debt from you or might have a problem down the road with debt because of it?
Dagan, that's a perfect question to ask, and it all boils down to communication. What you really need to do is talk openly and honestly. And if you set a budget together, you set savings goals together, these things will come out in the course of doing a financial checkup with each other.
Should you go through somebody's closets, though? If you're a guy and you're worried about your girlfriend who shops a lot, should you go serious? I'm not kidding. To go through and see if she has a lot of clothes and shoes that she's never worn.
Well, that is one approach, but I think a better approach is to just sit down and say, look, most people in America have a financial literacy issue, and we don't want to be a couple that falls into that bucket. So let's talk about it openly and honestly, and let's set goals together.
Here's my question. Say you find a quote-unquote pothole. You find some problems with the person you're dating. Is that reason in and of itself to get out, or at what point do you work with them to try to make them better?
Love can conquer many things, even financial angst.
All right.
So that's not a reason to run away, but it is a reason to sit and talk about it.
Do you know any relationships that have fallen apart before the marriage because of money issues, because they couldn't reconcile bad habits or debts on one side versus the other?
It's happening daily in America. I mean, 70% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck, and so absolutely, this is an issue that left unaddressed can be very painful.
It can cause a lot of problems. So, all right, so people watching it, maybe not in this situation, but people that have kids and are trying to advise their daughters or their sons that are out there dating, what should they tell them, and what are the pitfalls that younger people fall into?
Well, 3 things. First of all, encourage your children to bring this subject up. Money's the pink elephant in the room. We talk about everything else in our society, but we don't talk about money openly and honestly. So encourage them to put it out on the table. Second, really important thing, teach your kids things aren't always what they seem when it comes to money. Oftentimes, the guy in the shiny car, the gal with the fancy designer jeans, that extra doesn't bear any resemblance to their financial reality.
That's Manisha Thakor. Great tips all around. Thank you so much for joining us.
That's right. That's like the fancy house with no furniture in it or something like that. Thanks, Manisha. We appreciate it.